Can you guys hear me in the back? I don't need a mic?
Yeah.
It's okay? So first of all, I want to talk about hypocrisy, about people who tell other people to make sure they go to sleep on time so they can be in the van, and then don't show up. So I wanted to ask for maafi from the Sangat for missing the van this morning.
You are forgiven.
I don't know if one person can forgive, but that's okay.
I forgive you. We have to forgive.
We all forgive you.
The second thing is our lecture today is going to be a little bit different than the one on Saturday. We've only been here a few days, but it feels like a long time. On Saturday, it was more history-based, and because there was so much content, we didn't have I didn't have room or the space to add in focus on Bani. We're going to be focusing more on Bani today, and we're going to try to use, or I've used Shabads from all three of our main sources, so from Guru Gobind Singh Ji, Bhai Gurdas, and from Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And I just want people to keep an open mind and to try to follow along. I know everyone's tired, and but let's try to stay focused for the next hour and a half, because this is our last talk of the camp, and hopefully we can all learn something from each other. Okay? Is there anybody else, Benji, up there? No? Sounds good. So I want us to, when we imagine the word Khalsa, what comes to mind? What do we visualize? I want the Singhs and the chorus to imagine, what do you visualize when you think of the word Khalsa? Hanji?
Pureness.
Pureness. I'm talking about visual image. Yeah, not a concept, sorry.
Yeah, I think
A Singh with a kirpan, okay? Hanji Benji? Akhanda? Okay. These are the types of things that we visualize. So a lot of us, and these guys maybe aren't the best examples. Okay. This is why I miss the divan. It's very hard to find pictures with a limited bandwidth, okay? Go Bollywood. They don't know who these things are?
Yeah. The famous Gatka.
Are these the guys who did the craziness in India? That's why I was hoping that was the guys. Okay. With the fluorescent lights and all that.
Yeah.
So this is what we visualize when we visualize the Khalsa. And I want us to now think about, who do we imagine in our minds when we imagine great Khalsa from Sikh history? A lot of cases, when we imagine Khalsa, we imagine figures like Baba Deep Singh. That's what comes to our mind, right? And we imagine who Gursikhs from the past are. Now the problem is, and we touched on this in our talk on Friday, that much of Sikh history was lost. How much of it? We can't even begin to fathom how many Gursikhs were killed and how many of our pothis and granths were destroyed. And the real tragedy was that the authentic sources were the ones that are most likely to be destroyed, because those were the ones with the Sikhs. Whereas the inauthentic sources that were with groups that were against the Panth, and if you study Sikh history, we have lots of groups like this, like the Ramraye, or the Minne, or the Tirmaliye, right? Those are in the Guru's time period, but even after the Guru's time period, there's many different groups being supported by the government, just like there are today. And it is their sources that have survived to the modern day, which is why basic questions like what should be in Guru Granth Sahib Ji or not, or other questions like what is real lit and stuff like that, is very difficult or impossible to answer, because we lost our own sources and we only have people who were not really part of the Panth as their sources. Or we have the sources of secondary people studying us or talking about us, and they have their own biases, of course. So when we lose history, one of the main things that we've lost is a genuine Sikh perspective. And in that Sikh perspective, we lost Sikh women's stories from Sikh history. So that we can go through all the way from 1469 to 1708, and we can tell the Sakhis of dozens of Sikh men, but only a handful of Sikh women. So most of us have already heard about all of these Sikh women many times. We've heard about Bibi Nanaki and Bibi Pani, right? We've heard about Mata Pakar and all these other famous Sikh women. Whereas if we were to compare the number, Now, do we seriously consider that there were very few Sikh women in the Guru's time period that didn't have amazing stories? But it's what the Panth remembered over time. So in the 1700s, when most Sikhs could not read or write, and history was being written by non-Sikhs, do you think they were more likely to write down stories of men being brave or so on and so forth, or were they likely to write down stories of Sikh women's experiences, either from the Guru time period or afterwards? So we lost a lot of our history in the 1700s. We don't understand how much education and literacy had fallen apart by Ranjit Singh's time. Does anyone know? Ranjit Singh didn't know how to read or write. So the king of Punjab did not know how to read or write. Most of the Sikh leaders did not know how to read Bach or Bani. And in the late Missile period, the Khalsa used to go, when they were living in the jungles, they would go and they would kidnap Nirmale or Adasis and bring them to the jungle, and they would make them, they wouldn't kidnap them for any evil purpose, they would kidnap them just so that they could read Guru Granth Sahib Ji for them. So that was their thinking. They were amazing. They just wanted someone to be able to read Bach to them. But most of them did not know how to read Bach themselves. So when we say, why was the Panth in such a bad situation by the mid-1800s, it's because most people did not have a direct connection with Guruji. Their connection was through these Mahants, who were telling them what was inside Bani. And so that's where a lot of our history and stuff got lost. So when when Bhai Veer Singh and the other great Sikhs of the Singh Sabha Lair started to rewrite Sikh history and write Sakhis, as amazing as they were Punjabi men. And so the stories that they presented were largely male stories. But what's very interesting, if you look, is that Bhai Veer Singh has 4 famous books that he wrote. Sundari, Baj Singh, what's the long poem? Sorry, I'm really tired right now. He has 4 main stories. In all 4 stories, the central character is a woman. So there is still this consciousness there. And even in the Singh Sabha time, when we speak about spiritual connection with Vaheguru, it is through the lens of the female, just as in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So to begin with, and this isn't the focus of the talk today, I wanted to do a few, 3 short stories of lost Sikh women from Sikh history. And you'll notice that in most of these, or in 2 out of the 3, we have no pictures of them, because nobody's bothered to make up pictures. I mean, you wouldn't know what they look like anyways. So I found an old painting of Kabul from older day times. When Guru Amar Das Ji was a really important, Guru Amar Das Ji's Gurgadi, Guruship time period was a very important part for organizing the Sikh Panth. And Guruji sent out Sikhs to every single state in the Mughal Empire to show that the Khalsa, the Sikh Panth, was a alternative government, to show that we had sovereignty. And in each of those places, those Sikhs was called a Pir. Piriya is what Guru Amar Das Ji started. And they were in charge of the Sangat for that whole area. And we talked the other day in one of our discussion groups, I don't know which group it was, about Charan Amrit. When you want to become a Sikh and you want to take Charan Amrit, if you could not go to Goindwal or to Kiratpur or to Anandpur, you took Amrit from the Pir, or from the Masan, who was representing the Guru. That's how high their position was. Now, out of the 33 Pirs that Guru Amar Das Ji sent out, one of them was a woman. We don't know her name even anymore, but she was called Mai Kabuli, the mother from Kabul. So what type of place is Kabul, Afghanistan today? Is it a very female-friendly area or space? Do you guys think it was much better 400 years ago? Or worse? Right? So for Guru Amar Das Ji to send a woman to represent Sikhi in that atmosphere, and to be the person teaching Sikhi and propagating Sikhi, is a really revolutionary act. And for the Sikhs of that area, how would they have to take Charan Amrit to become Sikhs? They'd have to take it from a bibi, right? You know, as long as she's not in the Panj, I guess it's okay, but... So, Mai Kabuli was the person who was giving Charan Amrit to the Sikhs of Kabul. And she's famous in those days for being a very respected Sikh of Guruji. The second Sikh this is a picture of Kiratpur Gurukar, and this is a story of Bibi Sarup Kaur. And I mentioned her a couple times in the last couple of days. Bibi Sarup Kaur, sometimes her name is written as Harup Kaur, and she's the first Sikh woman from Sikh history to have the name Kaur, before the Khalsa was created. So Guru Har Rai Sahib Ji had two sons, Ram Rai and Guru Har Krishan Sahib Ji. But he adopted a daughter named Bibi Sarup Kaur. And it's said that she was one of the early Sikh historians, and she wrote down the history of the early gurus. But we don't have those texts.
I was going to ask you if you have any books.
No, all it says sorry, where is she mentioned?
I was going to ask you if you have any books written.
No, nothing. She had children, and her children became Khalsa in 1699 and gave Shahidi for Guru Gobind Singh Ji in Guru Gobind Singh Ji's army. So they were part of the Khalsa Fund. So Bibi Sarup Kaur gives us a really unique insight into the Gurus' lives. That the Gurus are adopting women, very unique. Usually in Punjabi culture, adoptions happen how? Within families, right? So adopting somebody who's not part of your family is very unique. Adopting a girl is not very common, you know? And then for Guruji to educate his daughter, and for her not to only be educated, but to be a scholar, was pretty revolutionary. So this should also make us consider how many of us heard of her name or her story growing up. So why aren't these stories told when we talk about Sikh history? The last one, this is a new comic. So I didn't know that there was this comic published, but this is a picture of Bibi Daler Kaur. Bibi Daler Kaur, when Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and we talked about the Sakhi a little bit yesterday, with Bhai Bachittar Singh Shahidi, was that when Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji and the Khalsa left Anandpur Sahib, a volunteer stood up out of the Khalsa army, and her name was Bibi Daler Kaur. And she stood up and said, I want to stay here, Guruji, to protect the Gurukar and the forts as a small reserve.
Did they really have rifles?
Yeah, I mean, they had rifles, muskets, or whatever they were called, that like single loading, one shot things. I don't know if they look like that. With all drawings, they're all inaccurate, right? This is a modern. I think it's a really good seva that the Singh did. I believe he's from Seattle, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hamid.
Yeah. So I think it's awesome that he's popularizing the story. When I was younger, I never heard of this story. So it's pretty awesome. But I don't know how accurate it is, but that's fine. On nobody's paintings are going to be accurate.
They
We should
probably
just
had rifles, but not that many.
not that many, yeah. And I don't know how useful rifles would have been as well. Anyways, outside of that, Bibi Daler Kaur stayed at Anandpur Sahib with a forge of 100 women. Now, we talk a lot about Sikh history, that Sikhs have always been amazing. We've never done bad things where we've killed innocent people and so on and so forth. But we kind of skip over some key parts of our history which we should face up to and we should be ashamed of. And one of those incidents was partition. And in partition, in a lot of cases, many young women were forced or pressured to commit suicide by jumping in wells in Western Punjab so that they would not be captured and raped by Muslims. And this was considered an honorable thing, and it's something that is even spoken of with pride by Sikh men. That it's better that they die than be raped. Now, Bibi Daler Kaur was not worried about that. And the risk of her being caught and being assaulted was very real. And Guru Gobind Singh Ji wasn't worried about that either. So we need to think about what our thinkings of honor and ijjat, and are those Sikhi values or are those Punjabi or Hindu cultural values, right? So Bibi Daler Kaur did get shaheed, as did the 100 Bibiyan there. And they fought bravely defending Anandpur Sahib. So when we think about Sikhi and Guru Nanak, just like we spoke about in our talk the other day, Guru Nanak Sahib Ji had a vision of destroying the social norms because he saw a very unequal and unfair place, a society, and he wished to create a new model. And he created that new model not by criticizing, not by telling people that they were wrong all the time, but by building and doing. That's the Sikhi model. The Sikhi model isn't just sitting on the internet and writing text about how bad things are, or I don't know what you guys do nowadays, I feel old now. It's Instagramming pictures and stuff about this person did that and whatever, you know? That's not the Sikhi model. The Sikhi model is going out and starting a langar. You know, the Sikhi model is going out and building schools, the Sikhi model is so forth. So one thing that I learned recently and I found very inspiring was that in the Singh Sabha movement, after every conference or camp that they would have, like we have camps now, they wouldn't ever just leave the camp. Because what happens now? We leave a camp and we feel good for a few days, and then what happens? And we say we want to be involved, we want to do seva, and we feel all committed, and then we leave, and do we, in a lot of cases, actually do anything? No. So they would, after every conference or camp that they had, they would lay a foundation stone for a new school. So all of those different schools in Punjab, you know, like Guru Har Krishan School, Guru Har Rai School, all the schools you guys see around with those little kids in the uniforms, all those Khalsa schools were started mainly in the 1870s to 1920 time period by Sikhs, who made an effort that we want to educate girls and boys and give them a good education with a Sikhi aspect to the education. And that was also very important because that was the first place in India where girls were given an education. Those early Sikh reformers very much always built, and you can see all the schools are either, they're like girls' schools or boys' schools, but they're never just boys' schools, right? Even if you go to Punjab, no, none of those schools are new, most of them aren't new, they're from back then. I'm not saying none of them, that's excessive, but a lot of them are from back then. So Sikhi is about destroying social and cultural norms that we find wrong, destroying them through action, not by creative destruction is what I would say. So you don't just destroy it and then leave it as rubble, essentially. You build an alternative. That's what the Sikhi model is. So I could not find a picture of Guru Nanak Sahib Ji with river. This is the only picture I could find. The other one had him coming out of the water like Jesus, okay, with light, and you guys are seeing the hand and all of it, and I couldn't do it, I'm sorry. So I don't know if some kid did it, I think it's kind of cute, but this is Guru Nanak Sahib Ji with the river, okay. So Guruji, he came out of the river, and what did he say? What was the first thing he said? Everyone knows, we were young, we've heard the Sakis? Nakoi Hindu, Nakoi Musliman, right? What? Nakoi Hindu, Nakoi Musliman. Okay, let's stop back in Jabbar Singh and harassing him. You know, he stood up and told the Sakya, so you didn't. So let's get back to it. He came out and said, Nakoi Hindu, Nakoi Musliman. Was Guru Nanak Sahib Ji deluded? No.
It's not
Non-Musliman, sorry. Now, was Guru Nanak Sahib Ji deluded? Did he stop realizing that there were Hindus and Muslims around him? Was he saying that all Hindus and Muslims should stop being Hindus and Muslims? What was it that Guru Nanak Sahib Ji was saying? What do some people have ideas?
We're all equal?
We're all equal, we're all one. Did anybody disagree with that? Guruji was saying, stop looking at other people by social or cultural constructs or religious. Don't think of this person as a black person or a white person, or as a gay person or a straight person, or as a Canadian or an American, or as a Punjabi or a Bahari. You know, I find it really funny that Punjabis go on about how Baharis are ruining Punjab, destroying Punjab, and they're wrecking everything there. All the criticisms that Punjabis make about Baharis are the criticisms that Gore make about Sikhs in Canada, right? So it's very easy. People criticize, how come Jews got killed so badly in the Holocaust, but now they're being so terrible to Palestinians? It's very easy for the oppressed to become the oppressor. So the way we talk about Baharis, instead of saying, can we build schools? Can we teach them about Sikhi? Can we bring them into Sikhi, or can we educate them? Can we, you know, all those, instead of being constructive, we criticize and say they're dirty and they're wrecking Punjab, right? You know, if that mentality was used by Gordon, none of us would be here today, right? So we have to think about the way we talk. Anyways, Guru Nanak Sahib Ji, his first lesson when he came out of the river was stop looking at people based on what you see, look at the jot inside, right? That's the key of Sikhi. So this is a painting of Guru Amar Das Ji. I just like to use different than what we're used to. It looks a little strange, I know, but anyways. Guru Amar Das Ji, of course, is very famous for the reforms that I talked about, Maikabali, right? And he outlawed the practice of sati. Women were not allowed to be veiled coming into a gurdwara and so forth, and widow remarriage. We've heard of all these stories. And we've heard about the Shabad and we sing it every morning. So I need someone just to read the first two lines. Baji? Louder. So we all know, I'm not going to go through the whole Shabad because we all know it so many times, right? Now we were talking in the older kids discussion group yesterday about how Vars are organized, right? So when you have a Var, Guru Arjan Sahib Ji or the earlier Gurus added sloks into the Var. This is a slok that is added to a body of a Var Asa, right? Now in a Shabad, the Rahautuk is the explanation of the Shabad. For a body and Var combination, it's a body that is a Rahau of all the sloks that come beforehand. So we have made the Shabad about women and we use it to say Guru Nanak Sahib Ji respected women and promoted female equality. But if we look at what the earlier slok is, and I didn't put a translation because we read it every morning, it's not too hard to know what Guruji is saying. So if I could have a Benji read this part, please. Anybody volunteer? Andy? So Guru Nanak Sahib Ji, what is he talking about in the slok that comes right before the Pandit Jamia slok? What is his main focus here? It's about the idea of impurity and how impurity is a ridiculous concept and it makes no sense. And what does Guru Nanak Sahib Ji say? What is the most impure thing? The mouth of a person that does not remember Vaheguru. And what should you do to the mouth of that person? Because Guru Nanak speaks a lot more harshly than we do. What does he say? Nanak eve jani tit tukka. You guys know what tukka is. Spit at the mouth of the person that doesn't remember Vaheguru. Okay? That is real impurity. Someone who doesn't. So we got a lot of spitting to do after the conference. Okay? That sounds really gross. Anyway. And if we look at the 40, if somebody could please read the 40 for me, any volunteers?
What's the Rahul?
This is the Rahul part. Tusi pad lo.
पौड़ी सबको आँखें अपना जिस नाही सोचन कड़ी है कीता आपो अपना आप पे ही लेखा संगी है जा रहना नाही ऐत जग तांग आयत गार बहंदी है मुंदा के सहना आँखी है पढ़ अखर ए हो बुझी है मूर्ख है ना लुंजी है मूर्ख है ना लुंजी
So manda kisna akhiye par akhar e ho bujye. So the main focus here again, we're not going to go into very in depth, we don't have a lot of time, is the idea of what is really impure. Guru Sahib Ji is saying, and of course at the end Guru Sahib Ji has this awesome line about people who are so ignorant that they refuse to discuss these things or they're so set in their ways, what should we do with them? Don't waste time arguing with them, right? So this 40 is the actual explanation. Now, the Shabad is a very basic Shabad telling the society at the time that women are human beings. That's the basis of it. Women are not impure and dirty things. That's what Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is getting at. He's saying women are not impure and dirty things. This is where it fits into the slok and the 40 that come around it. And stop considering women to be so subhuman and disgusting. Because women weren't allowed into mosques, women weren't allowed into mandars. There are all sorts of rules around when women have their period, where they're allowed to go and not go after they give birth, where they can go and not go. The Guruji is saying, stop looking at those issues. Women are not impure. Now, that is Guru Nanak Sahib Ji's revolutionary statement 500 years ago in a very sexist culture. As a Panth, we have taken this as what Guru Nanak Sahib Ji thought about women. This was not what Guru Nanak Sahib Ji thought about women. This is what Guru Nanak Sahib Ji was telling the society around, as your first step, this is what you need to do. Start considering women to be human beings, not the be-all and end-all. So what we've done over 500 years is we have not progressed past this one simple step. And in fact, we haven't even gotten to fulfill this 140 still. There's still rules about women not being able to do certain things in the Panth. So instead of taking this as Guru Nanak Sahib Ji's inspiration to move forward, we become trapped in this paradigm. Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is not saying this is it. He is saying this is a first step. Now move on from this. Bani is not for women or men, so this is a very basic societal concept. So why aren't there other Shabdas in Guru Granth Sahib Ji that focus on what happens to women? There's no Banis that focus on racism in Bani. There's no Shabdas that focus on the excesses of caste discrimination. Those things are mentioned in passing. But the point is that Bani is focused on a spiritual connection between the individual and Sangat, and the Sangat and Akal Purkh Vaheguru. So when we use this Shabad all the time, I don't think we're doing service to what Guru Nanak Sahib Ji intended, and we're also showing how pathetic as a people we are that we haven't been able to progress past this. That we haven't been inspired by what Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is actually asking of us as a community. So when we use the Shabad, we're saying that women are just important due to their relations with men. Guru Nanak Sahib Ji's Shabad is not directed at women, and it doesn't speak to women as much as it speaks to men. It's about telling men, hey, your best friends are women, you come from a woman, you respect your mother, you fall in love, you get married, you have a relationship, you have children. Without a woman, you're unhappy. That's what this sloka is about, right? He's saying to men, stop being ridiculous about it. Your lives are centered around your relationships with women, and yet you treat them like garbage. But when we use this Shabad to say, this is what Sikhi is about, we're saying that women are only of value when they give, the quote that they use is, Jit Jamira Jan, right? That women only have value because they can give birth to kings. So this is a picture of a great Sikh king. That's great with the sarcasm. But anyways, this is Maharaja Bhupinder Singh of Patiala, which is where the style of Nok Wale Dastar started, Japnams. I'm just joking. I didn't mean to call it that. Yeah, you too.
I know you started.
So, as a community today, we really like talking about gender equality all the time, but the reality, of course, and I don't want to get too much into it because we know this, right? We know that on Gurdwara committees, it's usually all men. This is a picture of a Gurdwara committee. And if there is a woman, that she's a token, just like usually there's a youth token on there too, right? There's not a role. And I can tell a personal story that I used to be all like much more, let's go out and force change right now. And I was at University of Montreal, and I had helped start a Sikh Students Association, and I got people riled up. I said, we're going to go to the Gurdwara. And I had good relations with the Gurdwara. I used to go there often. I did seva there, and I knew the committee people. They wanted me on the committee as a token youth representative. And I took a young Singh there with me, and I said, we'll say we want to both be on the committee, or at least you and not me, so that there's a female voice on the committee. We went into the meeting, and as the meeting started, one of the uncles said to the girl, Beti, jaake chale kya? That's for real. So that was their idea of the girls there. So in not a Khalsa camp as much, because we have Bhai Sahib in the background, La Seva in the Langar, but still, we can see that the majority of Seva in the Langar hall is done by women, while men like me get a chance to talk. And same with our committees, Gurdwara meetings, camps, and almost all things that we do, women are providing the basic needs so that men are able to do stuff. That's the way that the Panth has become today. Hanji.
I have a question. So like our everyday vocabulary, for example, the term Singhani itself,
Yes.
that implies the fact that she's only known because of Singh
Singh.
Suri with it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, in a Dashi, Singh Singhaniya,
Yeah.
like is she only of prominence when there's Singh Suri with her?
Yeah.
Like it's everyday tone.
So, for Das, it's a poetic thing, but I agree that and I tried, and I've been not doing it today, we should be using the word Gaur, because that's a gift given to the Sikhs. And like I said, the title of Gaur was given before the title of Singh, to Bibi Sarup Gaur, right? It actually predates Vaisakhi. So we have here a situation in our, and let's bring it back to a micro level, because we need to stop talking about band, but we need to also be talking about family. And in our families, who does what in the family, who does what work, and who gets to have free time to do other stuff, you know? Who's making food, like when people come over to do vajal and other things, or kirtan, who's busy making all the food and taking care of everything so that the men can sit out there and talk and stuff. And Benji was telling me about that funny YouTube video yesterday. We were talking about the fact that here in this big hall here, because this used to be a Salvation Army building, there used to be a big painting of the Last Supper of Jesus above the kitchen, a huge one. And we started making jokes like we should put the stars on them and they shouldn't have painted over it, or we can put like Gurkha in front of them and have a thought bubble from Jesus saying, oh, I should become a Sikh, or something like that. And then she said, I saw a video where, what can you explain it quickly?
Yeah, it was just a clip from this British comedy called Goodness Gracious Me, and it's a South Asian cast in England, and the purpose of the show is to subvert everything that South Asians or any minorities feel and have felt in diasporic communities. So people making fun of their names, religious beliefs, how people look. So in this little clip, a little guy and his dad are at a museum, and they come across this painting, The Last Supper, and this little South Asian boy, he's really happy to see this great piece of Western art, because that is what it is considered to be. And his dad's like, oh, you know, this is like India inspired, right? And the son's really confused, like, how can that be? This is Jesus and other white men sitting around a table eating. There's no way this has any Indian influence. And his dad goes, wait, do you see any women there? And the guy's like, no. He's like, they're in the kitchen making food. So I'm telling you, this is from an Indian influence.
So I mean, we see that in our own families all the time, right? That, and what that means on a larger scale is then, you know, what we do in our homes is reflective of what we do in our gurudwaras, is reflective of what we do as a fund. We can't expect to make changes outside and talk about changes when we don't make changes in our own lives first. So what we've now done is we've made women the caregiver or the person who is providing comfort to the community. So women are providing that role while men go off and get to do other stuff. But what Bani teaches us is that the true caregiver, the true person or entity that is taking care of all of us is a Kalpurk Vaigu. So can I have somebody new please read this stuff? Somebody? Benji? It's very interesting that Guruji is directing the Shabad in a symbolic way to his mother, Meri Mai. And he's saying, who is the real mother? What Guruji is essentially saying in the Shabad is that Deen Dayal Kirpal Prabh Nanak Sad Sang Meri Jalan Bajai. That the person who has gotten rid of that fire, who has taken care of me and loved me, is a Kalpurk Vaigu, Deen Dayal Kirpal, right? When we see in Bani, what speaks to and should speak to both women and men is that Akal Purkh Vaheguru in Guru Granth Sahib Ji is a true mother and caregiver. Guruji is a data. Guruji is Denwala. Guruji is a Sukhdai. My wife's trying to be a midwife, and she really likes when Guruji is described as Sukhdai, because Dai is what you call a midwife in India. And in India, a midwife is considered a low position nowadays, whereas it used to be a respected position before the British came. Because it was considered like, well, you can't go to a doctor, you have to get a midwife to deliver your baby, right? But Sukhdai, the giver of Sukhdai, can also mean a nurse or someone who takes care of you, but it used to mean in Punjab a midwife, someone who actually helped bring new life into the world. The real Sukhdai in Bani is Vaheguru. So when we visualize and understand Vaheguru, we think of Vaheguru a lot of times in male terms. Whereas in Bani, Guruji is spoken in male terms. We shouldn't be ashamed of this. Guruji is spoken also as Thakur, as Lord, and all these other ways. But Guruji is also spoken of in these other ways as well. Because Bani is multifaceted, and Vaheguru has a lot of different ways that we can experience Vaheguru. Vaheguru is also our best friend, right? So it depends on the Shabad and the connotation that Guruji is trying to express when this Bani was revealed to them through by a Kalpa. So the talk is about adding the Patase. And here we see Mata Jito, who will become Mata Jit Gaur, adding the Patase into the Bhakta as Guru Gobind Singh Ji is preparing it to give to the Panch Pyare. This is the best one that I could find. Again, I don't like to use paintings too much, but that's okay, it's not bad. We can see Mataji doing it. And what's really interesting is that in later Sikh history, they say that Guruji told Mataji to add the Patase. Or they say that Guruji, not Guruji, Baba Burdaji's great grandson, and I forgot his name if anybody remembers. He, Haji? Maybe. He was the one who told Mataji to add the Patase. So it's again taking away the female voice from Sikh history. But the earliest accounts from Senapati, who is one of the earliest historians, and who is sometimes referred to as Sena Singh, in his book Sri Guru Sobha, says that Mataji put the Patase in on her own. That Guruji was making the Amrit, and she added the Patase. What does the Patase represent? We all know this, right? Sweetness and daya, compassion and love. So that by adding in what was traditionally a female trait, culturally, got infused in the Khalsa, which was not supposed to be female or male. So we all know these things, and I'm sure you've heard it before, I don't want to go on too much about it, but we know that there's a symbolism behind the Panch Pyara's names, right? And what's the first Panch Pyara, what's his name? Bhai, Daya Singh, right? So Daya Singh is the one with compassion, and Daya comes before Taran, always, right? And we see that in Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Bani, we see that in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, right? We see that in Japji Sahib. So Daya is the most important aspect, that's represented by the Patase. So getting outside the question, can women be in the Panj or not? The real answer is that the Panj couldn't have been there without a woman. So if Mataji had not done the seva, there would be no Panj, and there would be no Khalsa. So instead of asking, can women be in the Panj, you should be, Sikh men should be thanking women for the seva they did in 1699 as represented by Mata Jito. So what sweetness represents, and this is what I want to get at, is that people were saying to me beforehand, is this going to be a feminist talk? Or is this going to be about like putting down men? And this isn't what I'm trying to get at here. What we're trying to do is saying that as a Pant, we have all lost because of how we have set up our community today. And we're going to look at that next. Sorry, the part about the Pant was supposed to happen when this clip was on. That's a cool picture. I don't know when it's on it. I don't like all the modern pictures are always wearing orange, and I like blue in the Panch Pyare, so I can't tell what color they're wearing. So I thought it worked out nicely. So when we think about Khalsa at the beginning, remember, Badi, I liked his honest answer. I'm hoping someone would say that because it fit with what I was going to talk about. Was he imagined a Singh with a kirpan, right? But let's see, what does Guru Gobind Singh Ji imagine when he imagines what a Khalsa is? Because that's whose definition we should be using, right? He did create the Khalsa. So can somebody, or he revealed the Khalsa, we should say. And Akalpur created the Khalsa. Can somebody new please read the Shabad? Japna? You've had years of practice?
He's still sleepy.
Anybody? I'm going to just pick somebody. Hanji, fine.
Jagat jyot japai nisbasar ek bina man ek na ane puran prem patit sajay vrat gor madi mat pul na mane tirat dan daya tap sanjam ek bina ne ek pishane puran jyot jagay kat mein tab khalas nae na khalas tab khalas tahi ne khalas jane.
So Guruji is saying that a Khalsa is someone who has a jyot awoken in them. The imagery is so beautiful. And we were sitting around last night trying to do translations, me and Gagan, of this Shabad, and it was awful because Guruji's structure of the sentences are really hard to put into English. And we were using 3 different translations because my understanding of Gurmukhi, Gurbani is not very good. So it's not a good translation, but if you can read the Shabad itself and focus on that, it's beautiful. Guruji is saying that it awakens and it's nisvasa, day and night. And what is the emphasis of a Khalsa? The Khalsa emphasis is on ek, right? So ek bina man ek nayane, that he only thinks about one, never about the other, never about duality. And the next line is very beautiful. So how does a Khalsa dress himself or herself? A Khalsa dresses herself in love of Akal Purkh Vaiguru. That is what a true uniform of a Khalsa is. And then Guruji says, and I like this line, because a lot of us believe and do other superstitions, this is important for that, that not only should you not believe in all these superstitions, you know, God, Mari, Matpula, Namane, don't even believe in them by mistake, out of habit. Like that's how strict you should be about following only the ek and not the other. And then Guruji goes on about other different rituals and things that people do, but for him, nothing matters but Akal Purkh Vaiguru. And the last stuff is a Purin Jot Jagek Katme, that when the Jot arises and awakens within a person, that person is a true Khalsa. So a Khalsa is not, there's no male or female voice in this Shabad. The translations all say he, but if you look at the Shabad is about Khalsa as a genderless entity. The Khalsa is an individual, not a man or woman, who is connected to Akal Purkh Vaiguru. These Savaya are very inspiring to read. There's 33 of them, they're not very long. And like we were saying the other day, try to add new banis into your nitnem. It's a nice bani to read. It talks about what the definition of a Khalsa, what a Sikh should be. It's similar to Prasad Savaya in that sense, about what Guruji criticizes other rituals and stuff, and then talks about what a Sikh should be doing. And if we look at Bhai Gurdasji's Vada, when we think about qualities of what a Sikh is, a lot of times today, we have a very macho idea of what a Sikh is. And that is important. The warrior tradition is very important, but the warrior tradition in Sikhi comes not from a place of machismo or like arrogance. It comes from a place of humility and love. And if people have heard me speak before, I've been trying to avoid doing the same examples, but this is a very good example, is example of Guru Gobind Singh Ji and his Tir. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji dipped his arrows in gold. Why would he have done that?
Because it was a sign of love, so that whatever soldier was shot with the arrow, their family could use that gold-tipped arrow to help bury the soldier, and it's for the family as well.
So you see that from a Western perspective, like when we were talking after Oak Creek, people were saying Sikh is a peaceful religion. Peace for Sikhi can come through the warrior tradition, warrior aspect of Sikhi. The Guru Gobind Singh Ji's love for people is so great and vast and can't be contained that even in the act of killing an evil person who is hurting other people, he still loves that person so much and so deeply that he's worried about what will happen to their family after they die. Guruji's not showing off by having gold-tipped arrows. He's demonstrating how much he loves the individual. What enemy what soldier in any army in the world would care after they've shot the enemy what happens to them? What happens to their family? It's a unique example in all of world history. That is Guru Gobind Singh Ji's love. So love is at the heart of the Sikh experience. So if someone could quickly read the Shabad from Bhai Gurdasji's Vada. Jabbar Jung Singh, you wanted to read the last one. Do you want to read this one?
On pani Besandro Rajgun Tumgun Satgun Jita
Tam Rajgun Tamgun Satgun Jita.
Man bach karm sankalp kar ek man hoye vigoye dujita lok ved gur gyan live andar ek bahar baho pita mat lok patal jin surg lok vich hoye athita mitha bolan niv chalan hathon dekar patit pavita gurmukh sukh fal paya atul adol amol amita san sangat mil peed na pita.
So it's very similar to Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Bani, right? Bani is all the same theme. Well, what's very beautiful about here, Bhai Gurdasji first talks about the qualities of a Gursikh. But I wanted to look at this line, Mitha bolan, niv chalan, hathon de karpatat pavita. The patat thondeya are those people who have actually gone against the Sikh dharma. But by following these principles of Sikhi, even they can be saved. So Bhai Sahib is saying that even those who are enemies of the Sikh Panth can be saved by doing what? What is at the heart of Sikhi? It is speaking sweetly. It is behaving humbly and giving charity, helping other people. So these are the qualities that as a Panth we have put on women. That Punjabi girls should speak sweetly, they should be caring and taking care of their brothers or their fathers, right? They should be helping in the house, and they should be giving things and helping people and behaving humbly, not like be speaking out of turn and so forth. Those are the values that as a culture we've put on Punjabi women. But these are the values that Guruji wants for all of us. That is the thing that can even save a patat. That's what Bhai Sahib is saying. So we have taken the positive values that Guruji wants all Sikhs to have, and as men we've given them up, and we've made them a tool of oppression almost on women. This has had negative consequences on both sides of the path. So Guruji wants that picture didn't work out, but I thought it'd be nice to use by Bidhi Chand jumping over the fort. Hanji?
Just going back to your last slide.
Hanji.
I kind of just wanted to point out, you know how we were talking about the 48 about Mulke Naam Nalujia,
Yeah.
right? So I think in our community we always tend to like focus on that line about Mulke Naam Nalujia, like, oh, don't argue with the fool, you
Yeah.
can't be convinced. But people like oftentimes forget the line that comes before that. It's
Yep.
Mazaki Sina Akhiya,
Yes.
which is like don't talk bad about anyone. So it's in line with what
Bhagavad Gita, yeah.
saying here.
Yeah. You don't go to someone and call them a fool. A fool is someone who after your interaction with them, you know they're a fool, then you stop wasting time with them. But you come always into every experience from a place of nimrata. So does anybody know what Bhai Gurdas Ji and Bhai Nandlal Ji say that Guru Nanak Sahib Ji brought as his first gift in his experience with the Kalpurk? What was the most important thing that he brought down from a Kalpurk by Guru? Hanji? That he was full of nimrata. He was humble. That is a path of Sikhi. Nirmal Panth Chalaya. No, that's got nothing to do with this, but that's a joke from yesterday. So on the left we have Bhai Gurdas Ji, who compiled the original copy of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, which is now called the Kitab Urdiya, and was the teacher of Guru Arjan Sahib Ji and Guru Har Gobind, taught them scholarly stuff, and was the nephew of Guru Amar Das Ji. On the right hand side we have Bhai Bidhi Chand jumping with his horse over the fort of Lahore. They were both Sikhs of Guru Har Gobind. And Guru Har Gobind had a policy that he would challenge Sikhs to leave their comfort zone and try to grow as individuals. So he sent Bhai Bidhi Chand, who as we know from the story was an expert with horses, he sent him to go do prachar, which was what Bhai Gurdas Ji had done for years when he was a Sikh of Guru Arjan. Bhai Gurdas Ji had gone to Agra and started a very prominent Sikh community there, and it was in Agra that he wrote his Kabit Savaiya. So instead of sending Bhai Gurdas to do Vajad, he sent Bhai Bidhi Chand, whose background was as a thief and as a sort of adventurer. He had to go and challenge himself and learn how to do Gatha and preach Sikhi. Bhai Gurdas Ji, as an old man who had spent his life with books, was sent to Kabul to buy horses for the Sikh army. So you would think, sent Bhai Bidhi Chand to buy the horses, sent Bhai Gurdas Ji to go do Gatha. Instead, Guruji is challenging us as a community. The Sikhya is not for them, it's for us today. I'm sure Bhai Bidhi Chand and Bhai Gurdas Ji had no problem with doing these tasks. Their level of Sikhya and their love for Guruji was very high. The challenge is for us today. How do we challenge ourselves to break out of the roles that we have created for ourselves in the community? We have to challenge those and try to be an integrated Sikh as Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji wanted. This is a very disturbing picture. You guys all saw it. It came out a couple of years ago maybe, or maybe not. It's an Indian newspaper, and it's a picture of his barber shop. And if you find the original article, the barber goes on about how many little kids' hair he cuts every week. He goes, I got lineups. It's from a couple of years ago, right? So we all know that in Punjab, all the kids are cutting their hair now, right? So this is a little boy who just had his gas cut. So what have we lost as a community when we devalue 50% of the community? Right? This is what we're losing.
Wait, can you
Yeah, I'm going to elaborate right now. So I don't want to focus on these things because we know these stats, but I think it's still important if I'm going to talk about lost female voices in Sikhi, is that if we look at how many girls have been killed through female sex-selective abortion, that the number for all of India would be 10 million in the last decade. So you're looking in a healthy population, there are 1,005 girls born for every 1,000 boys. That's what a normal population should be. There's usually more girls. But in Punjab, there are 850 girls for every 1,000 boys. So that means that for every 1,000 boys, there's 150 girls that are not born. That means there's 150 Bibiyan who can't bring their experience into the Panth, who cannot teach Sikhi. Because the relationship is still in a home. The mother's role in terms of teaching Sikhi has always been primary throughout Sikh history, especially in a traditional setting where the father was out of the house working. Nowadays, where both husband and wife are working, we still see, even in the West, that women, even if they have jobs, usually end up still doing most of the work around the house. Because women's role as a caregiver and children's attachment to a mother is very primary. We're not going to get into those issues of whether that should change or not, but we're talking about what the situation is, not whether it should change or not. The reality is that if we are killing daughters, we are also killing mothers of future Sikhs, boys and girls, right? That's the truth. We are killing people who can bring their experience to the Panth and help save the Khalsa Panth. So we're committing suicide as a community. So if you look, white means no problems with gender inequality. Light red means some problems, dark red, and then black means the worst. So which area of India has the worst? Chandigarh, right? So we should be ashamed of this. That the place, the birth of Guru Nanak, is the place that is the worst. And then what happens when we devalue girls from birth? This then leads to much more serious problems in terms of issues of sexual abuse and physical abuse and rape. And we see how prominent rape is in North India, and the Leela incident happened last week. You guys heard about it. These issues don't exist as much in the parts of India where female inequality or female gender imbalance is less so. So as much as we criticize the Hindu community for much of India, South India and Eastern India, they are much better than us when it comes to treating women with respect. And this then has an impact in all other things. So of course you guys have all heard the stories and you've seen it yourself in your own communities. I remember speaking to someone who worked at Surrey General Hospital, and she said, she was a Gaudi, she said, I can tell when a girl's born because everyone's crying outside the room. Right? So we all know this. So if we are not celebrating a girl's birth if we're devaluing her from her birth, then that then creates a system where it's okay to do these things culturally. No one talks about it, but this all happens. So when we criticize the Catholic Church for all the child sex abuse scandals, it's only a matter of time before really awful stuff starts coming out, because we all know that this stuff happens in our community. It's going to start coming out, and we're not going to have a response to it. But Sikh men have also lost something. So what we've done is we focused on this very exaggerated portrayal of Sikh men without even looking at their own lives. So Baba Jarnail Singh and Baba Deep Singh have become sort of these superhuman figures who are just great warriors. But we forget that Baba Deep Singh became a Sikh with his mother and came to Anandpur Sahib and learned Kirtan and used to do Kirtan in Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Darbar, and that's where he first became famous as a Gursikh. Not as a warrior, but as a Kirtani, as a young child with his mother, they would do Kirtan together. And same with Baba Jarnail Singh, we have created this image of him as this great warrior, forgetting about his very funny, humorous, and kind and loving side, that if you look at his life, he demonstrated in a lot of ways the way he would go out of his way to help individuals who were having a difficult time. And what we've also lost is that, and I'm guilty of this myself, all of us or most of us have either wallpapers up on our computers or posters in our rooms, and most of these posters are Sikhs like Baba Deep Singh and Baba Jarnail Singh. And in my own house, I don't have any pictures of the Gurus. I made clear I'm not a big fan of them, but I have a photograph that a Sikh took from like early '84 of Baba Jarnail Singh, and I like I really look up to him, and so that's like one of the most prominent pictures of a Sikh in my house, right? But at the same time, how many of us have pictures of Bhagat Puran Singh in our house? Or have pictures of Bhai Kanhaiya? So when we talk about losing the female voice in Sikhi, it doesn't mean that we've just lost women. It also means that as men, we have forgotten about a core aspect of Sikhi, and that is the aspect of being loving and kind. By making that only a female quality, we have forgotten that that is actually the central quality of all Sikhs. And so, an amazing Sikh like Bhai Kanhaiya, we should have his poster up with Baba Deep Singh's poster, you know? Or at least have a more nuanced view of what type of person Baba Deep Singh was. And maybe not just have pictures of, these paintings are cool, and especially when you're a young teenager, and this is for young boys, we like to look up to these images and sort of model ourselves on that. But we forget that the modeling should be on Bani, and what does Guruji say a true Sikh and a true Khalsa is someone who's full of love and nimrata. It's easy to say that we can go out and be tough and that's how we solve things, but that's not how the Bant has ever solved anything. So, I used the same picture as the other one because I couldn't find a better picture of Nishan Sahib's from the last presentation, I apologize. But as a Bant, as a nation, as a community, as a Dharam, together, we have a question of how do we want to move forward. Bringing in the female voice means two different things. A lot of times people say, well, we don't stop BBM from getting involved, or we don't say to them they can't do stuff. They just don't say that they want to do stuff. You know, this is a common thing. You might have heard this before. But the truth is that when you're in a position of power, it's very hard to see that you are. It's like when you talk to Gore and you say, they're like, yeah, people in Canada aren't racist, and you laugh at them, and you say, well, that's obviously not the case, right? And you can give examples of how we've suffered discrimination. Wherever we go, we have to face that. But Gore don't see it, right? They're in a position of power culturally, and they don't experience that. So they, even if it's so obvious to us that we're facing discrimination, they don't get it. So same with Sikh men, we don't get it because we're not experiencing what our sisters are going through. So the job is both sides, not just talking here in a lecture, but it is about if you seriously want the Bant to move forward, if you want Jardi Kala for the Khalsa Bant, if you want us to fulfill those revolutions of the future, we need to seriously consider how we interact in our daily lives, in the community, and as a Bant as a whole. And for Sikh women, that does mean that they need to step up, but it also means that in a lot of cases, Sikh men need to take a step back. So this fits very nicely with something I was talking to yesterday with Benji. Benji, I forgot your name, I'm sorry. Jasmine Kaur. So Jasmine Kaur Benji is, as a young course, doing this amazing project where they are trying to bring to light what's going on in Punjab today. And so I'm going in a couple of weeks to speak at a retreat in Toronto, and one of the things that I really like about this retreat, I've never been to one of their camps before, or it's been years if I have. They say that what they like to do at the end of every camp is they don't just like to talk about doing seva, they want to set up a project by the end of the camp that people can commit to and say, we want to work on this project. So they have the Seva Food Bank, you guys might have heard about it. That came out of their camp. So they had the camp, and they said, we're not just going to talk about doing seva, let's actually start something. So she's got a project going on where they are trying to bring to light what is happening to Sikhs in Punjab today and do it through art and music and expressing yourself, which of course would be a great way to spread our message with other youth. And from a Gurmukh perspective, which I think is really inspiring and awesome. But they are in desperate need of volunteers, and they are in need of finances, because Gurdwaras don't support this type of thing. So you guys who are here in Surrey, you need to ask yourselves, have you been inspired at all by what we've talked about at the camp? Do you want to help them with this project as young Gors that are trying to make a difference in the community? And one of the big things that they are struggling with right now is they want to come up with a project, and they don't just want to just talk about what's going on in Punjab. And we were sitting yesterday and I said, I can't think of what type of thing we could do. As a community, what could we do that would really make what's happening there and give people some type of seva or some way to be involved that they feel that they're making a change. But that was just the three of us talking. As a Sangat, the power of the Sangat is very great. And I'm sure many of you could have a lot of suggestions or ideas of things that as a community, after they've done their this event, what the community can do together to move forward. In the same way, when we leave camps with a very great high. We're getting up at Amrit Villa, most of us, and we are doing Bharat and Kirtan. And then we go back and we don't keep it up. So, we need to be smarter and not go into a cycle of camp in the summer, or maybe sometimes camp in the winter, and maybe we'll go to a samagam, and then the rest of the time we're falling off. So change in Sikh history has always been made at the local Sangat level, always. Change does not get made talking about, oh, the Panth's in such a bad state of affairs, what's happening in Punjab. It doesn't get changed by talking about things. If you guys want to learn about Sikh history, then start reading Sikh history. If you want to connect to the Guru, then start connecting with the Guru. There's no way to talk about it. You have to just do it. The best way to do it is to do it together. So I'm sure everyone here in the Lower Mainland can take an hour or 2 hours out of their week and come together and do a discussion, do vichar, and do kirtan together. And then move forward and try to help each other grow. In the same way, if you want to be involved politically, you can help Benji in whatever way. If you can't help in terms of actually being there with them, you can at least help with a part of your Daswand. Because Daswand is an amazing institution that Sikhs have that allow the community to work on a lot of different projects. Okay? So I apologize for all the mistakes I made, and sincerely, I really want to thank the Sevadars for organizing the camp. It's a lot of work, and it's not something that I would ever be able to do. I would find it too challenging. Everyone in the Langar Hall, everyone who organized bringing people from the airport, organizing the buses, the vans, people in the bar, organizing Kirtan, everything. I want to thank all the Sevadars. I want to, of course, thank most of all Guru Granth Sahib Ji. We're so lucky that we can have Gurmat camps in Guru Sahib's darshan. So this is a great gift that we've been given. People say, what's the greatest time period in Sikh history to live in? It's now. We can do darshan of all 10 Gurus. You know? A Sikh of Guru Hargobind said we could only do darshan of Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji. You know? So we're very lucky that we have Guruji with us here. And we should take that opportunity. And thank you to all of the campers as well. I've really enjoyed our discussions. I get a lot out of it. And even though I'm sick of talking by the end of these camps, if anyone wants to talk for the next 3 hours, I wouldn't mind. And thank you for everything you guys have done. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So what time is it?
12:07.
So how much time do we have left?
Pizza's on its way. It might not be here for another half an hour.
Okay, pizza's on its way. It may not be here for half an hour. By someone to speak for a few minutes, but before that, maybe we could, because there are a lot of things here that we have talked about that are quite powerful. Maybe this is the most disturbing image, I think, that we saw. If we leave it on this might force us to confront some Hanji.
Did you go to the next slide?
You don't want to look at it?
No, the one after. Wait, one after that. That one. Let's see the number one.
So all these numbers are for India as a whole, and they were done by a UN study. You can find the study online. I don't know what the numbers are for Punjab specifically, right?
So when, how long were these?
This study is from this decade, from the 2000s. Hanji.
So I just want to share like something, right? And it's about the small ones, the percentages.
Yeah.
And it actually had one of the percentages was sexual abuse. I mean, you mentioned the Catholic thing, and I think it's amazing that you mentioned it, just because it is a matter of time before this is exposed within our own community. Like as someone who works at camps in California,
It comes up a lot. People will share things.
It's fairly common. I mean, of course, I'm not going to go into it, but it's fairly common, and it's not as rare as you assume it to be.
No, that's the problem, that everyone pretends like they think it's rare, but we know that it's not.
Yeah, and these are like Amritari Bibiyan that have gone through this, either through whoever sings, Amritari, quote unquote Amritari sings, that have done these things. So it's within our own prominent community that this happens.
This is not an outside problem.
Yeah, it's not like some random person that you don't know that just happened to.
Sexual assaults don't happen from strangers. It's very, very rare. Those get sensationalized in the media, but most happen in the home.
Yeah.
So these are things that we as a community need to start talking about, as uncomfortable as they are. You know, in the larger issue, Kevin Deep, sorry, I just couldn't remember the last part. Kevin Deep Singh was asking me the other day after the revolution talk, Baji, how can we move forward? That's what the end part was. How can we move forward? It's about being involved with your Sangat and start to make changes on your personal self. But one thing is that we can talk about these issues. The more we keep things hidden, the worse they become in any situation. So again, it goes back to the Ijat Gal, the way we treated Bibiyan in partition. We like to keep problems hidden away instead of facing them. But that's not the model that Guruji put forward. Guruji wasn't afraid or worried about what people would say. People criticize Sikhs. Everyone's heard the Sakya Bhai Manj? So Bhai Manj was given so much disrespect for becoming a Sikh and was dishonored from his family, his community, business relations, everything, just for the gift. And he was the famous Sakyas. Guru Arjan Sahib returned him back 3 times from becoming a Sikh. He said, you're going to suffer so much for becoming a Sikh. So Sikhs aren't worried about what other people say or what they think. Because if that was the case, then nobody would have become a Sikh back in the day, right? Because you can imagine leaving your community, your family, and joining this religion would have been very difficult, or this path. So we do need to be brave in that sense. And that means that we need to create space for people to talk, and we need to, Sikh men, need to be more conscious of our behavior. So when we talk about, in a very basic way, I get very disturbed when I hear young Sikh men talking about girls in a very crude manner, you know? And it's not from a sort of chauvinistic, like, chivalrous. It's just that girls Sikhs shouldn't talk about each other in that way, and they shouldn't be talking about women in that way. And on the other hand, also how you treat your sisters, right? And how you interact with them, what positions are available to them within the community. There's all sorts of things that we can be challenging, but really, the truth is that a lot of us, when it comes down to it, we're lazy in our own homes, right? So if we're not challenging how we're being in our own homes, then we really can't expect changes to come on the wider scale. It's something that we really need to consider.
When we chant, I'd like to have a few words.
Okay, so there's 2 people who want to have a few words, so I'll let Baji, if you can go first, and then go ahead. Can I steal your seat?
I just wanted to touch up on a few things. The talk that Vijay just had with all of us. It's very important that equality between women and men is practiced within Sikhi. A big thing that we've been trying to push a lot is there's 5 main things that are very important. Without these 5 things, we become dependent. When we become dependent, it's a weak link within ourselves. So for Singhs, for example, we should all know how to cook, right? No, sorry, not for Singhs. This is for Singhs and Kaurs. We should all know how to cook. We should all be physically fit, so we're not dependent on other people. We should all be mobile, so we should know how to drive cars, ride horses. There's also one of Maharaji's hukams, right? Shastra Vidya, Kodadisvarni. So those, so it was mobile, physical fitness, cooking. One very important thing that we're not alive without is Nam. So without that, we're not living. So that's one of the 5. Cooking. Self-defense is very important. So everybody, Bibiyan and Singhs, need to practice self-defense. Now, you guys are talking about, sorry, Baji was talking about how there's sexual abuse and whatnot. But Bibi knew how to defend ourselves. Could that ratio go down a little bit if she was brave enough to defend herself?
Well, see, it's not about being brave enough. We need to be realistic. Most of these things happen when girls are quite young, and it happens in the home.
Yeah, no, of course, but I mean, we should be practicing from a younger age, right? I mean, it's a possibility anyways, right? I mean, it's great talking about things, but we need to talk, but we also need to walk the walk, like how you mentioned in your speech the other day. It's very important that we practice what we preach. So these things are very important, and all Singhs, Kaurs need to know these very essential things. We can't be dependent. A Kaur can't be dependent on a Singh, and a Singh can't be dependent on a Kaur. We need to have independence within ourselves. We need to be positive that we can survive without being dependent on somebody else. That's all I want to say. Where are your cause?
We might think that some of us might say, is that really necessary? But look what happened in New York City just a couple months ago, you know? like disasters, not even natural disasters can happen. If you're not prepared, like someone like me who's very unhealthy, you know, or doesn't know how to cook or do other things, like these are basic skills. We don't need to be like the militias in America where we're like preparing for the apocalypse at the same time. But all Khalsa should be ready because, to be honest, it doesn't go too many decades before Sikhs are faced with another massacre, you know? And that's the truth. And if you think it can't happen here, it's unlikely, but I bet the Sikhs in Delhi also thought it couldn't happen there in '84, right? So that's the truth, right? And Baba Janel Singh's advice to the Sikhs in Delhi was, what? Everyone get a gun for your house, right? So we do need to take basic things. Badi was telling me yesterday that he really recommends taking basic knife training. And I've thought about this before, that if we ever actually needed to use our kirpans, that we would most likely be hurting ourselves before we stopped anybody, because we don't even know how to hold a kirpan, what to do with it, or how to, you know, utilize it. And most likely if the other person did, we would be in more trouble because of our kirpan, because of how, you know, kind of useless we are with it.
Too, that's if your kirpan actually comes out of the sheath.
We don't need to go on about that anymore. So, yes, exactly. We need, you know, and also keeping our shastras ready and all those sorts of ideas, you know?
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਬੋਲਾਂਗਾ, ਤਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ। ਤਾਂ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੈਂਪ ਆ, ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਲਾਈਫ 'ਚ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਕੈਂਪ ਅਟੈਂਡ ਕੀਤਾ, ਕਦੀ ਲਾਈਫ 'ਚ ਕੈਂਪ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਟੈਂਡ ਕੀਤਾ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਕੈਂਪ ਇੰਨਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਟੱਚਿੰਗ ਲੱਗਾ ਔਰ ਇੰਨਾ ਚੰਗਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਕਿ ਬੜਾ ਕੁਛ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਮੈਂ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਰੀ ਲਾਈਫ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ। ਕਈ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਰੈਵੋਲੂਸ਼ਨਸ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੋਰ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਰੈਵੋਲੂਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਆਹ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈ। ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਰੈਵੋਲੂਸ਼ਨ ਕਿਹਨੇ ਕਰਨਾ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ 'ਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਰਨਾ, ਮੀਨਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ? ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਲਈ ਕੈਂਪ 'ਚੋਂ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ, ਅਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਪਨਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ, ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਿੰਮਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਬਹੁਤ ਐਪਰੀਸ਼ੀਏਟ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਯੋਗ ਆ ਇਹ, ਕਿ ਇੰਨਾ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ। ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਬੀਬੀਆਂ ਲੰਗਰ ਛਕਾਉਂਦੀਆਂ, ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸੇਵਾ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੰਪਰੈਸ ਹਾਂ। ਮੈਂ ਇੰਨੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ, ਇੰਨੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨੀ, ਅਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਲਾਹਾ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਵੀ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਨਾ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਦੇ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਉੱਠ ਕੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਪਾਉਣਾ, ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀ ਹੈ। ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਥੈਂਕਫੁਲ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ 'ਚ ਵੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਰੱਖਣ, ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰੀਏ। ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਮਾਫੀ ਮੰਗਦਾ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਆਉਣ ਲਈ, ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਛੁੱਟੀ ਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਕਦੋਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਦੱਸੂਗਾ। ਚਲੋ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਗਈ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਆ ਗਿਆ, ਪਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਕਹਿ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਆਊਂਗਾ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਵੀ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਛੁੱਟੀ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਵਾਂ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਵੇਟ ਕਰਾਈ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸੌਰੀ ਉਹਦੇ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਕੰਪ ਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੋ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਵਧੀਆ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ। ਦੋ ਬੰਦੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੇ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਮੂੰਹ 'ਤੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਆ ਬਾਹਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਿਕਲਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਇੱਕ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਬੋਲਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਸਰਲੋ ਦੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਬਾਰੇ, ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਬਣ ਗਈ, ਮੈਂ ਰਹਿਤ ਰੱਖੀ ਸੀ, ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਰਖਾਈ ਕਹਿ ਦਿਓ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਰਹਿਤ ਰੱਖਣੀ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੇ ਵੱਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਤੋਂ ਲੈਣੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਸ਼ਕਤੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਯੋਗ ਕਰੋ, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਅਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਚੰਗੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਮਿਲਿਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਬੜਾ ਇੰਪਰੈਸ ਹੋਇਆ, ਮੈਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਮਿਸ ਕਰਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਡਿਸਾਈਡ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਮੈਂ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਣਾ। ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਵੀ ਸਫਲ ਹੋਇਆ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਸਪੀਕਰਸ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਆ, ਔਰਗਨਾਈਜ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਸਮ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟ ਤਾਂ ਆਇਆ ਕੁਛ, ਕੋਈ ਇੱਕ ਬੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਈਵਨ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੋ ਜਾਣੇ, ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਆ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਬੱਚੀ ਮਿਲੀ ਆ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਡਿਸਾਈਡ ਕੀਤਾ ਅਮਿਸ਼ਕ ਨੂੰ, ਮੈਂ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰੂੰਗੀ। ਟਰਾਈ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੋਚੋ ਹਾਂ, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਅਤੇ ਦੂਜੀ ਗੱਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਣ ਡਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਆ, ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਗਏ, ਚਾਹੇ ਉਹ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜਾਣਦੇ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਘੱਟ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਆ, ਉਸ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਆ। ਪਰ ਸਟਿਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਨਾਂਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਈ ਅੱਖਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਹੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਨਾਂਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਤਾਂ 2 ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਮੈਂ ਸਿੱਖੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਸਭਨਾ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸਮਰੱਥ, ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਾਠ ਕੀਤਾ ਨਾ, ਬੇਟੀ ਸੀ ਕੋਈ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਭਨਾ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸਮਰੱਥ ਸੁਆਮੀ, ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸੀ ਕੋਈ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਸਭਨਾ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸਮਰੱਥ, ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਟਾਕਸ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ, ਸਾਰੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਨਾ, ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸਮਰੱਥ ਆ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ। ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੱਗਾ ਲੱਲਾ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ 'ਚ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਆ, ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਆ, ਗਲ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਆ। 3 ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਇਹਦੇ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਬਣਦੇ ਆ। ਗੱਗਾ ਲੱਲਾ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਨਾ, ਇੱਕ ਗੱਗਾ ਲੱਲਾ ਗਲ, ਗਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇਵੜੀ ਪੈ ਗਈ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਇੱਕ ਗੱਗਾ ਲੱਲਾ ਗਲ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਗੱਲ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ 'ਚੋਂ ਚੰਗੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਇੱਕ ਗੱਗਾ ਲੱਲਾ ਗਲ, ਗਲ ਜਾਣਾ, ਗਲ ਜਾਵੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਨਾਮ ਬਿਨਾ, ਹਾਂਜੀ। ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸੇਮ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਗੱਗਾ ਲੱਲਾ ਹੀ 3 ਥਾਂ 'ਤੇ, ਠੀਕ। ਉਹਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਨਾਂਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਲਈ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਹਦੀ ਸੰਖਿਆ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਟੀਚਿੰਗ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਆ। ਔਰ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਕਿਤੇ ਅਵੇਲੇਬਲ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਸਹੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਨਾ। ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਚਿਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਛ ਕਰ ਲਵਾਂ। ਬਾਪੂ ਸਾਧੂ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਇੱਕ ਫਰਿਜਨੋਂ ਤੋਂ ਆ, ਉਹ ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਿਖਾਉਣ ਲਈ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਲਿਮਟਡ ਆ। ਅਸੀਂ ਫੋਨ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ 'ਤੇ 10 ਕੁ ਜਣੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਿਖਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਆਹ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਆ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਆ। ਅਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਲਾਰਜ ਸਕੇਲ 'ਤੇ ਕਰੀਏ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੂਰ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਲੈਣ। ਫੋਨ 'ਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਸਿਰਫ USA ਦੇ ਹੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਪੈ ਜਾਣਾ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਅਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਚਾਹਿਆ ਤਾਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵੱਸ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਐਫਰਟ ਕਰਨਾ, ਸੰਗਤ ਅਸੀਸ ਦੇਵੇ। ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਕਿ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਇੱਕ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਬਣਾਉਣੀ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਯੂਥ ਦੇ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਆ। ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਚਿਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਯੂਥ ਕੁਛ ਸਿੱਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਵੱਡਿਆਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ, ਅਤੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਕੋਈ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਐਫਰਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਛ ਦੱਸੀਏ ਜਾਂ ਕੁਛ। ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਸਰਚ ਤਾਂ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਟ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਟ 'ਤੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਹੀ ਪਾਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ, ਵੱਡੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ। ਹੁਣ ਪਾਉਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਿਆ, ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਆਉਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਈਆਂ। ਭਾਈ ਸਰਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਵਾਲੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਵੱਡਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਆ, ਵੱਡਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਵੱਡੇ ਅਤੇ ਯੂਥ ਰਲ ਕੇ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਉਮਰ ਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੇ ਉਮਰ ਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਜਿੱਦ ਤੱਕ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਉਹ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ 'ਚ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਇੰਨੇ ਖਰਾਬ ਹਾਲਾਤਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਆਏ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਆਪ ਵੀ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋ ਗਏ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਾ, ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵਿਸ਼ਵਾਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚ ਸਾਡਾ ਵੀ ਕਸੂਰ ਨਹੀਂ, ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਹਾਲ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖ 'ਤੇ ਵਿਸ਼ਵਾਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਿਹਾ। ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਇਹ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਆ, ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਿਹਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਆ, ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ, ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਫਲਾਣੇ ਦਾ, ਧਮਕਾ। ਉਹ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡਾਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵੀ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਰੂਗਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਚੱਲੇ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹਨੇ ਕੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਨੀ, ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ। ਮਤਲਬ ਕਿ ਚੰਗੇ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਏਜ ਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ 'ਚ ਵੱਡੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਕੋਈ ਕੌਂਸਟੈਂਟ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦਾ ਨਾ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਅਵੋਇਡ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਤੁਰਦੇ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਾਹ ਨੂੰ। ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਮੇਰੇ 'ਤੇ ਹੀ ਡਾਊਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਣ ਵੀ ਖਰੇ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ, ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਰਨਾ, ਜਾਂ ਰੱਬ ਜਾਣੇ ਕਿ ਪੇ ਜੇ ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਰਨਾ, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕੀ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹੋਗੇ, ਤੁਰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂਗੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਗੱਲੋਂ। ਜਿਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹੀਏ ਆ ਜਾਓ ਆਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰੀਏ, ਉਹ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਰਦਾ। ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਯੂਥ ਵੱਲ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਕਿ ਯੂਥ ਹਲੇ ਤੁਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਰਲ ਕੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਰੈਵੋਲੂਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਤਿਆਰੀ ਕਰੀਏ। ਉਹ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਇਓ, ਅਤੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਆ ਜਨਵਰੀ ਦੇ ਅੱਧੇ ਤੱਕ ਉਹ ਹੋ ਜਾਣੀ ਆ। ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਕੰਟੈਂਟ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ TV ਵਾਂਗੂ ਚਲਾਉਣਾ ਅਸੀਂ, ਕਿ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗਾ, ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਵੇਲਾ 'ਚ ਆਇਆ ਕਰੇਗਾ, ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਆਇਆ ਕਰੇਗਾ ਐਵਰੀਡੇ, ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਦੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਐਵਰੀਡੇ ਆਸਾ ਦੀ ਵਾਰ ਆਇਆ ਕਰੇਗੀ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਲਾਨ ਬਣਾਇਆ, 5-6 ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਨੇ ਰਲ ਕੇ ਕੀਤਾ, ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਮੇਨ। ਅਤੇ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ, ਮੈਂ ਸਿਆਟਲ ਤੋਂ ਹਾਂ, ਇਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਿਆਟਲ ਦੇ ਪਾਸੇ 'ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੰਟੈਂਟ ਇੱਧਰੋਂ ਇਕੱਠਾ ਕਰਿਓ, ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੰਟੈਂਟ ਪਿਆ ਆ, ਕੋਈ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਪਿਆ ਆ ਰਿਕਾਰਡ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਦੀ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈਗੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਦੇਣੀ ਚਾਹਣ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਪੇਪਰ ਦਊਂਗਾ, ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉੱਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਈਮੇਲ ਲਿਖ ਦਿਓ, ਇੱਕ ਡਰੌਪ ਬਾਕਸ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ, ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਹਦਾ ਲਿੰਕ ਭੇਜ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ। ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਚੀਜ਼ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਉਣੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾ, ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੈਜੈਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਆ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋਲ ਬਣਾਈ ਹੋਈ, ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਕੀਰਤਨ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੋਣਾ, ਕੀਰਤਨ ਹੀ ਦੇ ਦਿਓ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਜਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਓ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਦਿਖਾਵਾਂਗੇ, ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੰਥਿਆ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਔਨਲਾਈਨ ਲਾਈਵ ਸੰਥਿਆ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਦੀ ਰੈਂਟ ਸਵਾਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਦੀ ਲਾਈਵ, ਇੱਦਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਹਾਂ। ਬਾਕੀ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੰਨਾ ਕੰਪਿਊਟਰ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛੂੰਗਾ ਜੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਜੇ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਧੂ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਮੰਨ ਗਏ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਕਰਾਵਾਂਗੇ, ਜੇ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਸਰਜਰੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ, ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਣਗੇ, ਫਿਰ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਭਾਂਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਰੂੰਗਾ। ਕਿ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਦੀ ਸੰਥਿਆ ਕਰਕੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਕੇ ਦੇਖਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਦਾ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਕੀ ਆ, ਬਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਾਠ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਨਾਊਂਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਕੀ ਆ, ਦੋ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਨਾਊਂਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੁੱਧ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕਰਕੇ ਚੱਲਾਂਗੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਵੀ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ, ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਵਰਕਸ਼ਾਪ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ, ਤੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ। ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਸੀ ਉੱਚੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਮੈਂ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਲਿਜਾਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਪਰ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੇਰਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ, ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛੋਟੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੋਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਪੈਣੀ ਹੈ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਕੀਤਾ, ਤੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੋਂ ਤਾਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ। ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਰੱਬ ਦੇ ਮਿਲਣ ਦੀ ਆਖਰੀ ਸਟੇਜ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲੀਆਂ ਸਟੇਜਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਪੈਣੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਫਸਟ ਸਟੈਪ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਸੈਕੰਡ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਥਰਡ ਕੀ ਹੈ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਇਮਰੀ 'ਚ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਇਮਰੀ ਸਕੂਲ ਤੋਂ ਮਿਡਲ 'ਚ ਜਾਂਦੇ, ਫਿਰ ਹਾਈ 'ਚ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ। ਅਜੇ 10ਵੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਹੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਛ ਸਿੱਖਦਾ ਆ, ਪਰ ਲੋੜ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ। ਤੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੰਟੈਂਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਕੰਟੈਂਟ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਦਿਓ, ਤੇ ਈਮੇਲ ਦੇ ਦਿਓ, ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਡਰੌਪ ਬਾਕਸ ਭੇਜ ਦਊਂਗਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਲਿੰਕ। ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਰੈਗੂਲਰਲੀ ਚੈੱਕ ਕਰਦੇ ਦਿਓ ਕਿ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਨਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਅੱਗੇ ਸਾਲ ਵਿੱਚ 2 ਵਾਰੀ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਪੰਥ ਦਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕੀ ਮਸਲੇ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ, ਤੇ ਅਕਾਲ ਤਖਤ ਤੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ। ਤੇ ਅਕਾਲ ਤਖਤ ਦਾ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ, ਪਿਛਲੇ ਕਈ 100 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਲਾ ਲਓ, ਉੱਥੇ ਧਰਮ ਦੀ ਜਾਂ ਪੰਥ ਦੀ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ। ਉੱਥੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਆ ਕਿ ਪੰਥ ਨੂੰ ਨੱਪਿਆ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਜਾਵੇ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਆਪਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਲੜਾਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਕਿੰਨੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ 100 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆ, ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸੋਲਵ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨ ਡਿਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਹੀ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੋਲਵ ਕਰੇ, ਨਾ ਹੀ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਮੇਨ ਲੀਡਰ ਆ ਉਹ ਸੋਲਵ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ। ਤੇ ਦੋ ਜਣੇ ਰਲਦੇ ਨੇਗੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਤੇ ਖੜ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨਾ, ਕੋਈ ਰਾਗਮਾਲਾ ਦਾ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਬਣਾਉਂਦਾ, ਕੋਈ ਕੇਸਕੀ ਦਾ ਬਣਾਉਂਦਾ, ਕੋਈ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਬਣਾਉਂਦਾ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਤਖਤ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਹਾਂਜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੋ ਗਏ, ਇਹ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣ ਦਿੰਦੇ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰਾਗਮਾਲਾ ਦਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਕੋਈ ਪੜ੍ਹੇ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਪੜ੍ਹੇ, ਦੋਨੇ ਠੀਕ ਆ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਪਰ ਦੋਨੇ ਠੀਕ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, ਇੱਕ ਫੈਸਲਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਉੱਥੇ। ਉਹ ਪਿਛਲੇ 80 ਸਾਲ ਤੱਕ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਫੈਸਲਾ, ਕੋਈ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੀ ਆ। ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਨਾ, ਅਕਾਲ ਤਖਤ ਦੇ ਜਥੇਦਾਰ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਟਰਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ ਸਪੀਕ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ, ਉਹ ਹੁਣ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੱਕਦੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਛਾਪੀ ਸ਼੍ਰੋਮਣੀ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਨੇ, ਉਹਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ, ਹਿੰਦੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਛਾਪੀ ਆ, ਔਰ ਇੰਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਸਾਡਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆ। 99 ਵਿੱਚ ਛਾਪੀ ਆ, ਮਤਲਬ 13 ਸਾਲ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਲੇ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ। ਸਾਡੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਲੋਕ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ, ਹਿੰਦੀ 'ਚ ਕਿਹਨੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਨਾ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। 200 ਰੁਪਈਆ ਉਹਦੀ ਕੀਮਤ ਆ, ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਡੇਅਰ ਕਰੂਗਾ 200 ਰੁਪਈਆ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਪੜ੍ਹੀਏ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਊਲ ਜਲੂਲ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ਰੇਆਮ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਰੈਕਟਰਲੈਸ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਆ, ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਚੰਗਾ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦਾ, ਇੰਨਾ ਗਲਤ ਲਿਖ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਉੱਤੇ। ਇੱਕ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਪੜ੍ਹਦਾ ਸੀ, ਦੇਖਿਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਲਿਖਿਆ, ਉਹ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਚੁੱਕ ਕੇ ਕੰਨ 'ਚ ਮਾਰੀ, ਇਹ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਯਾਰ ਇਹਨੇ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਇੰਨਾ ਗੜਬੜ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਛਪਾਈ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ RSS, ਇੱਕ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ 'ਚ ਮਿਕਸ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਉਲਟ ਪੁਲਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਲਿਖੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ। ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਉਦੋਂ ਕੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਛ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਕਰੋ ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀ, कोई गल नहीं करता। किसी होर नाल गल कीती, वो कहंदे जी हाँ किताब छपी सी, गलती नाल साडे कोल छप गई ते हुण असीं किताब बैन कर दित्ती है। तो मैं कहा किने छापी आ जां काहतों छापी सी? कहंदे तुसीं उतों की लेना, कुछ फोन हैंग कर देंगे, वो दस देंगे कि किने किने पब्लिश करने लई किने इहनूं रिकमेंड कीता सीगा भी इहनूं छाप दे। श्रोमणी कमेटी ने अपने पैसे अपने उन्हां दे कित्थों आउंदे? संगत दे पैसे हैं। संगत पैसे दिंदी है चंगे काम लई, वो चंगा की करना माड़ा कर रहा सी। एक हुंदा चंगा करना, एक हुंदा कुछ भी नहीं करना, राइट? वो भी हले चंगा है, चंगा भी ना करन माड़ा भी ना करन फिर भी चंगा है। वो पैसे लैके माड़ा कर रहा है, संगत का ही पैसा लैके ते संगत सिख धर्म नूं ही डाउनग्रेड कर रहा है। सोचना पैना है, रेवोल्यूशन की लोड़ आ। वो आपां नूं लड़ाइयां करके नहीं हैगी, एजुकेशन नाल हुण तुहाडे कोल मीडिया की लोड़ सी, मीडिया भी आपां बना लेना, नहीं तो हुण फेसबुक वगैरह अपनी कई कुछ इदां दी चीज़ां हैगियां जिह च तुसीं अपने विचार पा के लोकां नूं जागृत करो। तुहाडे कोल कंप्यूटर सारिਆਂ कोल आ, ला के जिथे भी गल सच्ची आउंदी ना उहनूं करो। जिहड़ा बंदा गलत कर रहा उहनूं कंडैम करो, भावें किड्डा वड्डा है, कोई लीडर है, कोई कुछ भी है, की लोड़ है डरन दी? ना जिहड़ा भी गलत आ कहो उहनूं गलत आ, ये पंथ लई ठीक नहीं हैगा। असीं की कहंदे आ ਜਾਂ सानू की है साडी जिहड़ी मेन प्रॉब्लम है, असीं मैं उत्थे गुरुद्वारे किन्निਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ, मैं कहा आह कुछ हो रहा, कहंदे बहुत गलत हो रहा। मैं कहा कुछ करिए इन्हां नूं, आपां इह 'च की कर सकदे हैं? मैं कहा आपां क्यों नहीं कुछ कर सकते? कहंदे जी नहीं असीं नहीं इत्थे कुछ कर सकते। लो जी गल निबेड़ दिंदे। उन्हां नूं श्रोमणी कमेटी नूं कौन समझाऊगा? असीं नहीं कुछ कर सकते। उन्हां ने चलना ही नहीं गा, ना उन्हां दी नीत ही है किसी ने चलना नहीं। आपां की आ कम से कम आपां स्टैंड लईए, क्योंकि उन्होंने सोचा होया कि एक जिहड़ियां श्रोमणी कमेटी तो किताब छपाई आ, इन्होंने ਉਹ स्कूलों में लवाउणी आने वाले 100 साल तक, जो भी उन्होंने प्लान किया होगा एवं थोड़ी छपाई उन्होंने फिर साढ़े बच्चों को पढ़ाना कि तुहाडे गुरु साहब ही चंगे नहीं सी, तो गुरु का प्यार नहीं होना। जे गुरु का प्यार नहीं होया फिर अमृत नाल भी नहीं प्यार होना, फिर बाणी नाल भी नहीं प्यार होना। साडा प्यार तोड़िया जा रहा, ठीक है? तो आपां की करना है, पहले नंबर पर प्यार वध तो वध करना है ना गुरु नूं, ताकि गुरु का प्यार ही साडा सोर्स है जिहड़ा सिੱਖੀ नाल सानूं जोड़ी रखदा। जिद्दण प्यार नहीं रहा उद्दण सिੱਖੀ टुट जानी। प्यार मेन चीज़ है, प्यार भी है एक साडी सोच भी इदां दी चाहीदी आ कि साडे बजुर्गों की की कुर्बानियां या साडा इत्थे जिम्मेवारी की है। जिहड़ा खालसा एक रॉयल फैमिली आ, फैमिली का ये हुंदा है, सारियां बहुत फैमिलियां देखियां पंजाब च, जदों ना एक भरा काम नहीं करता दूजा ये कहता हुंदा मैं काहतों करा, वो नहीं करता। तो सांझे काम होवे ना पिंडां विच भी जां किते भी फैमिलियां विच भी, वो च हुंदा वो दो जणे तां बैठे आ, मैं काहतों करा, ठीक है? जे 3 भरा होण, जे 4 होण, वो कहना आ बैठे आ असीं काहतों करिए। गल इदां दे साडी हालात हो गई आ भी सारे ही कहंदे असीं काहतों करिए, कोई होर नहीं करदा असीं काहतों करिए। इदां नहीं चलना, आपां नूं किसी समय आपां नूं लैना पैना स्टाइलिंग। ते आ जे महाराज किरपा करे तुसीं सारे इहदे विच सहयोग दिओ, होर बच्चों नाल ऐड करिओ, ते आपां जिद्दां भी चल सकदे होए एक लहर बनावांगे, सच की गल करांगे, लोकी सुणनगे, सच सुण के औखे हुंदे आ लोकी, बोलण सानूं की है ना, ते ओह साडे विरुद्ध भी बोलणगे, बोल लैण, सानूं कोई गल नहीं। सच बोलण दी कीमत चुकाउणी पैंदी है। ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੰਦਾ सच बोलता ना, ਜਿਹੜੇ झूठे आ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਹੇਠਾਂ ਸਿੱਟਣ ਦੀ कोशिश करते हैं, ਉੱਤੇ इल्जाम ਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ बुरा बोलते हैं। फेस करना पैना ना, गुरु महाराज ने सिੱਖ बहुत स्ट्रोंग बनाए, फेस करिਓ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ। ਤੇ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਕੁ ਤੱਕ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹ khalsamedia.org ਚੈੱਕ ਕਰਿਓ ਕਿ ਆ ਗਈ ਆ। ਤੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਕੰਟੈਂਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੰਥਿਆ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਦੀ ਜਾਂ ਹੋਰ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਈਮੇਲਸ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਪੇਪਰ ਦੇ ਦੂੰਗਾ, ਬਾਹਰ ਰੱਖ ਦੂੰਗਾ ਲੰਗਰ 'ਚ, ਉੱਥੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਈਮੇਲਸ ਲਿਖ ਦਿਓ, ਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿ ਦੂੰਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਲਿਸਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਡ ਕਰ ਦੇਣ। ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਅਪਗ੍ਰੇਡ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਦੇਣਗੇ। ਤੇ LA ਦੇ ਅਤੇ ਬੇ ਏਰੀਏ ਦੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਲਈ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਿਓ। ਮਾਇਆ ਦੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਦੀ ਹਾਲੇ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ, ਮਾਇਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪੇ 11-12 ਬੰਦੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਦਸਵੰਚੋਂ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਤੇ ਪਰ ਜੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਗਾਂਹ ਵੱਡੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟ ਹੋਏ ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਦੇਖਾਂਗੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ। ਤੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਇੰਨੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਓ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸੁਣਿਓ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਪਰੈਡ ਕਰਿਓ, ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਓ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਹ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰੋ। ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਆ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਪਾਸੇ ਲਾਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ। ਵੱਖਰੀਆਂ ਰੂਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਵਿਰਲੇ ਵਿਰਲੇ ਥਾਂ ਬਣਾਈਆਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ, ਉਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੀ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਰਮਾਂ 'ਚ ਹੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਰਉਪਕਾਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਜਿਉਣੀ ਆ। ਤੇ ਚਾਹੇ ਉਹ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ ਕਰਨ, ਚਾਹੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਵੀ ਕਰਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੀ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਤੇ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਬਜਾਏ ਕਿ ਬਾਈ ਫੋਰਸ ਕਰੀਏ, ਚਾਅ ਨਾਲ ਕਦੋਂ ਨਾ ਕਰੀਏ। ਜੇ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ, ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੀ ਵੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਖਿੱਚ ਕੇ ਜਾਂ ਔਖੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਕਰਨ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਚਾਅ ਨਾਲ, ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਨਾਲ ਕਰੀਏ। ਤੇ ਆਪ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਚੰਗੇ ਬਣਨਾ ਤੇ ਦੂਜਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਣਨ ਲਈ ਪ੍ਰੇਰਨਾ ਕਰਨਾ। ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰਕ ਬਣਨਾ। ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਪੀਕਿੰਗ ਦੀ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਬੋਲਣ ਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਪਤਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਹਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਬੋਲੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਹੈ। ਭਾਈ ਸਰਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇਖੀ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਹੈ। ਬੋਲ ਬੋਲ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਬੋਲ ਸੋ ਧਰਮੜੀਆ ਮੋਨ ਕਾ ਧਾਰੀ ਦਾ। ਇਹ ਧਰਮੀ ਬੰਦਿਆ, ਤੂੰ ਕਾਹਤੋਂ ਮੋਨ ਧਾਰੀ? ਮੋਨ ਧਾਰਨ ਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਚੁੱਪ ਧਾਰ ਲੈਣੀ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੂੰ ਚੁੱਪ ਕਾਹਤੋਂ ਧਾਰ ਲਈ ਆ, ਤੂੰ ਬੋਲ। ਤੇ ਆਪ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਣੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਬੋਲਣਾ। ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਕੋਈ ਗਲਤੀ ਬੋਲ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੋਵੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਾਫੀ ਕਰਨੀ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ,